Hey OPB crew, Jake here from the Brave and the Boys, and today we are so excited to bring you a overview of the Omnibus of death metal. So first, we'll give you some background context, show you the different editions you can collect this in, and then we'll jump into the overview. If you want to skip ahead to that, it'll be chapter down below, but we just want to thank David and JP for asking us to do this and for sending us an overview copy. So that's really cool of them. If you want to pick this book up, you can use our discount code Braveboys to save $2 and help us get a little bit of a commission. And if you want to buy 4 or more books, you can use the code Braveboyssit to save 5%. Let's dive in.
Deep within a bleak and dismal swamp, hidden beneath its murky waters, lies the headquarters of the most sinister villains of all time, the Legion of Doom.
Up first, I want to give you my recommendations of what you should read to fully understand death metal. Now here's what I'm going to say. As with any book, you can do the encyclopedia reading and list like 60 books, for you to read to fully understand the context. These are what I think are the most important. So you're going to want to start with the metal event, which was actually my first big DC Crisis event and super fun. As always, it helps if you've read Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo's early work on Batman or the previous Crisis trilogies like Crisis on Infinite Earths, Infinite Crisis, and Final Crisis, but these are really the core ones you need to understand death metal. So in metal, it introduces the dark multiverse and the evil Batman, such as the Batman Who Laughs, a dark, twisted counterpart of Batman that's been Jokerized, and they go into lots of crazy things, and they alter the universe in a very interesting way that sets up the stories leading forward. There was technically one other book you should read in between these called No Justice, but it's only a trade paperback, so I just read it digitally. Then you can jump into the Scott Snyder work on Justice League. This was awesome. This felt like the animated series, but modern, and it was really cool. I love the way the team works, and the first issue, the totality, picks up right where this left off. So it's a really, really cool way to do that. But the meat and potatoes, the really important stuff is in volume 3. That sets up a lot about Lex's relationship to Perpetual, which is the villain that's in these books right here, and his place and all that. It also teases more about the Batman Who Laughs. Then you want to jump into the Batman Who Laughs, which I, famously bought 5 versions of this book. If you want to watch that video, it'll be linked here. But the Batman Who Laughs is Batman confronting the Grim Knight, which is like if Punisher was Batman, and the Batman Who Laughs, and it sets the stage for where the Batman Who Laughs is, and all of that is followed up in this crazy event. Now that I've told you what you should read first, let me show you the different ways you can collect this in. So as you can see here, I have 3 editions of death metal. I've actually quadruple dipped in death metal because I had the single issues. It was my final kind of swan song to single issue collecting, but those are in a box hidden in my parents' house because I don't even have enough room for these books, let alone for single issues. Then I upgraded to the deluxe edition, which was awesome. It's oversized, has some extras, not a ton. Then I got a super upgrade into the Absolute Edition. So I love the way that the Absolute Edition of metal and death metal match each other. If you want to watch an overview I did for OPB on this Absolute, you can watch that here. So definitely a really cool way to collect. But what makes the death metal omnibus so compelling, same thing with the metal omnibus, is these are going to contain all the tie-in issues. And for these events, the tie-in issues actually matter. Now, I always keep it honest. There are some event omnis that I've prefer the Absolute to, because I just like reading that story all the way through. But for metal and death metal, you definitely want to get the omnis because they're going to collect all the side stories, and there are some really cool side stories in both of these, and we'll dive into them in a second. But I do want to show you how the spines match on both of these, so we'll cut. Now you can see how the spines look. I love that even though I have the standard edition of the metal omnibus and the direct market cover of death metal, the spines still match. So should you pick up the Absolute or the omnibus? As always, I'm gonna say that Greg Capullo art is stunning and you want it in the largest size possible. But I am so happy you can finally read the whole story with all the tie-ins in the proper order. So if you want to go for the story, get the omnibus. If you want to go for the art, get the Absolute. And if you want to be me, get both. Now let's jump into the overview. I'll show you what it collects. We'll take the dust cover off and we'll dive into that crazy story. Now what you're all here for, let's dive into this amazing book. Here you can see all of the people that worked on it. There were a lot, but your main were going to be Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo, and Jonathan Glappin. And this will show you what it collects. It does collect Dark Knights Death Metal, Legends of the Dark Knights, #1. Dark Knights Death Metal, The Last 52, War of the Multiverse, #1. Dark Knights Death Metal, Speed Metal, #1. Dark Knights Death Metal, Infinite Hour Extreme, #1. Dark Knights Death Metal, Trinity Crisis, #1. Dark Knights Death Metal, Robin King, #1. Dark Knights Death Metal, Multiverses End, #1. Dark Knights Death Metal, Rise of the New Gods, #1. Dark Knights Death Metal, The Multiverse Who Laughs, #1. Dark Knights Death Metal Guidebook, #1. Dark Knights Death Metal, The Secret Origin, #1. Dark Knights Death Metal, The Last Stories of the DC Universe, #1. And Justice League 53 through 57. As well as, of course, Dark Knights Death Metal 1 through 7. So now that we got all of that out of the way, let's jump in. So here you can see the cool character designs of Wonder Woman, Batman with that awesome scythe, and Superman with like the Doomsday arm. But basically in this one, the goddess Perpetua aims to restart the multiverse in her image, destroying realities with the Batman Who Laughs as her lieutenant. Earth's heroes are under servitude with resistance crushed. So you start out with Sergeant Rock, and he's got this crazy gun, and you're really just thrown into this world. Here it says, Hell, formerly Themyscira, DCU. Yes, the real DCU. So this is telling you that this isn't a hypothetical future. This is what's really going on. And you have Wonder Woman with this chainsaw and this molten lava, and it is just a crazy place to start. So here you get like a swamp thing that's all burned, and Wonder Woman is in this prison, the invisible jet that comes back later. And you kind of just get a snippet of where this universe is at, where the world is at currently. You get a bunch of those Batman Who Laughs, the different versions. Here you get Robin King, one of the new characters. But this world is not a good place, and not a lot of things good are going on. So this will give you a little flashback of the end of Justice League, where they reach out and Perpetua just fries them. And here, this is Batman right here. He's pretty metal in this. He's got a Black Lantern ring, and he's rising people like new troops, like Confederate soldiers and stuff, to, you know, be in their army against the Batman Who Laughs and Perpetua. And you have Lobo on a mission that he knows is very important, and he's supposed to find something, and he finds what he's looking for. So that's important. Then you have Wonder Woman in the prison, and she meets a very important prisoner, Wally West. Now you might be a little confused why Wally West has this outfit on and these powers. This is explained in a book called Flash Forward, but basically he sits on the Mobius chair. Death Metal likes to say it's not a crisis. They call it the Anti-Crisis, but the whole point of it is they have to go to the previous DC Crisis events and collect energy. So this is why I think it's important to have read Crisis on Infinite Earths. They even throw 0 Hour in there, Infinite Crisis, Final Crisis, and Metal. So this is them saying these are what the definitive Crisis are. You don't see any of them going to Heroes in Crisis. So this is what the Crisis events are. And that things get a little crazy. Now, after meeting with Wally, the Batman Who Laughs confronts Wonder Woman, and I'm going to skip ahead because the next panel is shocking and definitely spoils what's going on. Look, they even have a crazy Batman-obile. So there's all kinds of crazy characters in this. And what I love about Death Metal is it basically just it's a love letter to DC, and that everything's important, and you get a lot of cool characters. Like here you have the JSA, and they're still there to fight with Batman. And Wonder Woman talks about how it's not enough that they win little skirmishes, they need to win the war. And I thought this part was crazy when I read it in the single issues. You have Batman with his Black Lantern ring, and he's in where all the heroes are buried, and he's just picking as many troops as he can, raising them from the dead to be in his army. And this one's cool. This is where you get a little bit of a background and context. So this weird looking dude is actually Apex Luthor. So Luthor was the original lieutenant of Perpetua. She basically shows him a false future where Doom wins and combines him with a Martian. A lot of crazy stuff going on. This was supposed to be an omnibus called Year of the Villain Hell's Arisen, but then it never came out. Then you get the Dr. Manhattan stuff from Doomsday Clock, so it kind of shows you where all that stuff's set up. Now, one of the crazy things is you have this weird person known as the final Bruce Wayne. He's basically from a dimension where Bruce Wayne was Dr. Manhattan. Here's Perpetua, the main villain. So Perpetua was a race of beings that creates was a race of beings that create multiverses. So she was kept outside of the source wall, but after the events of Metal where they break the source wall, she was free and she wants to rewrite the multiverse. So she's basically like the Anti-Monitor's mom, which is pretty crazy. And this is the main villain of Death Metal right here, the Darkest Night. Here you get to see a battle on New Apocalypse where the heroes are fighting to free people. And you got a lot of crazy stuff that's going on. Superman is just he's in a dark place. Basically, he got infected by Anti-Monitor and his arm is like Doomsday. So he's pretty crazy. But what I love about this book is it's definitely at its core a Wonder Woman story. She is the main protagonist. You get cool characters like Batman and Harley, but this is definitely a Wonder Woman story. Here you have the Robin King, which honestly thought he was kind of lame, but you know, he's cool. This one's an awesome issue where you have the Darkest Night chasing Jay Garrick, Barry Allen, and this blue Wally West. And they're basically, it's reminiscent of like when they have to outrun death. So as we'll flip through, I'll tell you kind of where I was at when this was originally releasing. At the time, I had a few collected editions, but I was a Wednesday Warrior or Tuesday Warrior. And it got really unsustainable because I was trying to collect everything, and it was so fun to just go to the comic shop at the time and buy issues. And my first Crisis event was Metal, so when they did a sequel with Death Metal, I kind of knew it was my time to step away from individual collecting, and I told myself that Death Metal would be when I finally made the switch to single editions. So that to me was a really cool experience. Here you get Perpetua. I like the concept of Perpetua. She changes a lot. This is one of the really cool characters that you get more experiences on in the Omnibus is Owlman. They skip over a lot of his stuff in the deluxe edition. You guys know I'm a huge Captain Carrot fan. I love anything that he's in. So I love that this is kind of Scott Snyder's love letter to DC, because not only was it his swan song, not only was it my swan song for DC collecting, it was Scott Snyder's swan song at DC. So they basically gave him the keys to the kingdom. Here, this is cool. You'll see Perpetua's kids. So she has 3 kids. The Monitor, the Anti-Monitor, and then I forget what he is, but his name is in the Justice League. You meet him in the Justice League by Scott Snyder books. So I thought it was cool how they were brothers. But yeah, it was kind of Scott Snyder's swan song before he left DC. And ever since I've been collecting, Scott Snyder was like one of the biggest names at DC. Like his Batman stuff were the first comics I ever read. And, you know, this was just such an important book for me. I feel like you can't have a Crisis without Superboy Prime showing up. So you get to see him and Wonder Woman fight. And it's so cool. As I'm flipping through here, I'm remembering parts from when I was collecting these, but I haven't read all of the tie-ins since they were originally coming out. And I think the important thing to say about this book is there's just a massive scale to it. Like, this is an all-out war. This is all hands on deck. Every villain is on their side. And I mean, you got Signal. Who cares about Signal? When was the last time Signal did anything? But yeah, and it is just like, they turned everything up to 11, and it was such an awesome payoff for all the things I had been reading, because there was a lot of books to get to here. This is one of my favorite issues right here. This is when you have the Batman Who Laughs, or the Darkest Night, fighting Perpetua, and it's just like this battle of gods, and you're like, and then you cut to this giant war, and this is like an all-out war with just crazy action. You don't even think, like, how are they going to survive? You know, how are they going to get through this? Like, it looks like all hope is lost, and there's just this massive evil army, and it is just all hands on deck. So let's look at the extras. They are going to give you a variant cover gallery. I love these. They're all like jamming on instruments. Of course, you have the Robin King playing the fiddle. I was happy because by the end of this, I was so tired of the Batman Who Laughs, and I was ready for him to be retired. But all of these covers are just fantastic. And yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. You should pick this up. This is a fun little surprise. I always love when they have flip out things like this. This gorgeous artwork. Yeah, let's jump into my final thoughts. And that's going to bring this video to a close. I want to thank you all so much for watching and supporting Jordan and I. I want to thank JP and David and the fine folks at OPB one more time for asking us to do this guest overview and sending us a review copy. If you want to pick this book up, it'll be linked down below and you can save $2 with our code Braveboys. Or if you're buying 4 or more, you can save 5% with the code Braveboyssit, and that code doesn't expire. You can use that as many times as you want, and it's a great way to support our channel. I want to ask you all to smash that like button, comment down below what DC Crisis is your favorite, ring that bell for notifications so you don't miss anything, and thank you all for being the most amazing friends in the world. Keep reading and stay brave.